Welcome to Mindy's House of Gold, the podcast, episode 5. And it's like morning where I am in Orlando, Florida. So I don't know, I feel a little in my voice, but hey, why not? These are how some of the greatest singers sounds. Beyonce, Miley Cyrus. They have really hard voices, but I like it. Today, I'm finally going to talk about the topic that I seem to name drop in every one of my podcasts, and that is leadership. And I definitely want to touch on, I don't know, I was thinking about like, what are all the places in life that there's a leadership relationship going on? And I definitely think like it's you and God, you and the church, you and your parents, you and work, and then like the world, like presidents, kings, all those kinds of things. And I know leadership is, I don't know, a sore spot for so many people because it is so hard to respect people that are leading you. And God's perspective on it really does change the whole game. I have been known to be, I little difficult to lead. I call you out. I'm really harsh sometimes. Like, the Bible definitely declares a couple of things that leaders should have. And if you don't have them, be sure that I'm taking note of it. And as someone who has grown as a leader, it's not fun when people do those same things to you. So sorry to everyone I've ever submitted to or not submitted to, but should have submitted to in work, in church, and the planet. The struggle's real. Some things I wanted to tell you about leadership that I'm like understanding is, number one, it is actually hard to be a leader. I don't know why everyone thinks being a leader is easy. It is extremely hard. I, in church, we'll use that as my example for my leadership. I have led and submitted as like a helper in like different ministries and groups. And that's really different. Leading like that means I don't have to show up necessarily early. I don't have to like stay really after. I don't have to deal with big things that people want to talk about. I'm just like a little helper, but I'm classified as a leader. That is some of the best leadership ever because it's like you get that instant gratification that you're doing something exceptional, but you also are not responsible for the whole thing. It's amazing. And I've led lots of groups or been a part of that in my past, but currently I lead an entire ministry of young adults. And it is so hard. Like, how does the room look? How does that room feel? Should I do a round table? Should I do a long table? Should I make chairs in a circle? Should I use a projector? Should I dim the lights? Should I have background music? Should it be Christian music? Should it be soft instrumental? Who would have thought when you show up late to something like I often do and things are all set up and moving forward, someone specifically thought about those little details. Should we have coffee? If we have coffee, should we have donuts? Everyone's trying to be healthy. Who's gluten-free? Who's got an allergy? These are all the things when you are responsible for the big picture that you think through. But sometimes when we show up to things, and we can be like, they didn't do a round table. I'm just speaking from personal, my history of coming into a room extremely judgmental and being like, well, this isn't done. And not even being thankful for all the other things that are being done that I had nothing to do with. So just a little nugget that it is actually hard to be a leader. Something else I want to say about being a leader is also like how we speak. And so as you guys know, I have a podcast, and the goal in my like 25 minutes of speaking is to make as little mistakes as possible. No one wants to edit all these. We want to have it natural and free flowing conversation. So when I stumble upon a word, like I have to think about it. Like, do I just pretend like I said a real English word when it was really Latin or Hebrew or in tongues? Or do I just say, I just made up a word and laugh about it? You should own it. But these are things that leaders have to think about. Like, if I say this sentence, how will it be perceived in the room? Who is the majority of the room? When I say these types of things, like who's it going to serve? I know these types of people might be offended or complain, so I need to be prepared for the backlash. Or the other thing as a leader is like, if I say this thing that's really challenging, I better be living it. Like, I'm just saying it is not as easy as you may think to be a leader. And that's just in church. I can't even imagine like how a CEO in a company is like. I know we all think all of our bosses are just rich and they don't care about us, but they don't have to have a company to employ anyone. So it's just kind of like they do think to some degree about all of us. So that's my little, what do you call it? A soapbox. There it is. See, I was almost fumbling on my podcast and I owned it. So being a leader is actually hard. The second thing I've come to learn about leadership is most leaders are not going out of their way to be terrible. I know. I feel when someone doesn't respond to my text or my phone call that they hate me and they are specifically conjuring. What's that word? Conjuring. There it is. Conjuring ways to offend me. And they woke up on a Saturday morning and said, how can I make Minde feel less than? And I'm going to strategically, when she texts or calls, I'm not going to answer. Guys, I am the worst person to get in contact with. Oh my gosh, it is so bad. And it's been like that for years, even before I was a leader. It's not that I don't want to talk or I don't want to text you in particular, whoever you might be. It's sometimes I just like to stare at the wall, like, or the ceiling, or both, or out the window. And I continue doing that for 5 minutes at a time. But then like another text comes in or a phone call. You know, I have an international family, things happen. Or I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about all of my responsibilities. And your request that you're reaching out to me with, I know it might be like your emergency. But in my world, like, I'm not handling anything sometimes. I'm just being a bum or being caught up with all the things in my mind, and it's not intentional. Side note, someone texted me like the day before my birthday, and it was a very long text message, and I have not responded because it was really long, and I wanted to give it a really good, thorough response. And if you haven't been able to tell by the date, my birthday was September 26th. We're at the end of October. I partially started writing it, but I think it was late at night and I didn't feel comfortable with my response. So yeah, I'm not going out of my way to be horrible, and neither are most leaders. I can't say that for all. You know, Hitler, I think, went out of his way, but most people aren't pulling a Hitler in their life. So most leaders are not going out of their way to be terrible to you. It's not intentional. And on a little side tangent, the Bible takes care of all sorts of like relational drama. Yes, we can be angry, we can be offended, we can be hurt, but there's this wonderful thing called like forgiveness, and also like going to someone with your issue and trying to tell them, hey, when you did this or did not do this, it hurt me. And you guys get to work it out. So don't just be angry with leaders. You can also say that things hurt, and then you'll see your relationship will get closer. So work it out, guys. Number 3, and I don't know if you guys realize this, but leaders are appointed by God. I know, super awkward. I have a Bible verse. Not necessarily saying that, but here it is. Romans 13:1 says, let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those have been instituted by God. That's the ESV. ESV, I didn't make that up. So, like, yes, I know we vote for things or we can promote people, but God's the one that's going to use that person for his good. Even if the hard things happen, like he's going to work it together for good. So, like, what do you do with that? Leaders are definitely appointed by God. So take up your problems with God. Shout out, you should pray. Just saying, for your leaders. It's a really helpful thing. Pray for what you can't change and change what you can. I don't know. I think someone said some kind of quote like that. Another thing about leadership that I think we all forget or don't realize is God holds them accountable. And I'm talking mostly like for Christian leaders and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure it works for everything else. But like, I know in the moment you might want your leader to be removed or them to suffer the consequences that you feel like they should, but God absolutely holds them accountable. And I have some more Bible verses for you. So in Hebrews 13:17, it says, obey your leaders and submit to them, for they keep watch over your soul and will have to give an account for this. So hopefully the leaders in your life aren't leading you lightly, but just know, like, they got to give an account to God. So whether or not they told you something crazy or they hurt you, like, God at the end of the day is going to be like, bro, what'd you say to Minde? Why'd you teach her like this? Why were you being ratchet and leading? Like, he's watching. There's no shortage of things being missed out. God is keeping account of all of it. And another thing, my point number 5 about leadership is leaders see the bigger picture. I'm going to use parents for an example. So as a kid, I have some really awesome friends with kids. And one of my friends just had a baby, and I remember her baby was crying the other day. And like the cry was getting a little bit more aggressive, but like she was like working on the bottle. And this baby has no idea that food is coming. All this baby knows is like, the person that gives me food isn't giving me food. Hashtag, the room isn't set up the way it should be. I think we should talk about this, but that topic's coming. And this baby had no idea that the parent is preparing a meal for them and they're going to be satisfied. Also, this parent's preparing, like, I'm going to give this baby a bath. I'm going to change this baby's diaper. I'm going to take care of you. And that's what leaders see. They see the bigger picture where, and it's supposed to be like that because they're the leader. Not everyone can be the leader. And that's why, like, it's so important to, like, just submit. I know that's, like, so hard, so awkward, so difficult, but trust the process. Another type of leader that sees, like, the bigger picture is like a CEO of a company. So I work for this awesome company. We make plastic goods. And for a long time, like, I didn't really not care about all the things we did as a company, but I didn't even know. And I can definitely walk into work and, like, see our problems and be like, oh, see, we're all falling apart, or, oh, see, we're so great. But not knowing that, like, what I do is like 40% of our entire business. My CEO sees the bigger picture. Like, that's how it is with leaders. And that's why they're held to a higher standard by God. There's so much more responsibility because you just can't see it all. Like, I even think about the president. Whichever president you're thinking of when I say this, it could be from the first to the current. You don't see everything. I would never, ever, ever want to be the president or the ruler of any country. Could you imagine? Oh my goodness. Like, how does anyone even be the president or a prime minister and have to care about every detail of how their leadership affects the human life in their country? Not to mention, like, I can't even list, just there's a budget. Who out here is killing their budget and doing great? Probably a lot of none of you. But, like, the president's got to somehow figure out what to do with our money. Plus, we got tons of debt. Do you pay it off? I know Dave Ramsey says you should, but I don't know how that works with leading a country. You know, we're not going to pay. We're going to tell people, you're below the line. We're not going to pay you. Like, I don't know if that works country-wide. China, I don't know what happens when they want to get paid. Like, I don't know what happens. But it's just, the bigger picture is so crazy. There's this awesome pastor named Michael Todd, and I quote him a lot, or I refer to him a lot on my social media and definitely on my website. But he's doing a series right now on faith. And he often talks about, like, his little girl and, like, how she will ask him for things. But I think the example he gave was, like, she wanted a Slurpee or something after service. And she didn't ask her dad, like, do you have money? You got a car that's going to get there? No, she absolutely just, like, trust that he's going to provide. And that's what we do with leaders. Like, you don't know the bigger picture. She's not asking, did you pay the rent? She don't care about any of that. She's just trusting that he sees the bigger picture. It is just so refreshing to trust the bigger picture. So in my life, I've been a harsh person at times to lead, but, you know, I keep forgetting that whole thing that I'm supposed to, like, make it easy for my leaders. But the struggle's real because there's, like, this fear that what if they ruin my whole life, or what if I don't get noticed? And all those little thoughts just aren't a part of the equation. When you read through the Bible, nowhere in the Bible do you see that we're supposed to challenge like our leaders in a disrespectful way. Like, yes, stand up for truth. Yes, don't lose yourself and all of that. But where do you see that at? Like, you're supposed to just nitpick and gossip about them and destroy their messages, or that stupid meeting we had. Like, you don't know the pressures. You have no idea. Respect goes a long way. Mutual submission to people goes a long way. But something that I think we all need to realize is that you have a choice of who you want to follow and who you want to submit to. Yes, as a country, you should just suck it up, obey. I get that. But if you really don't want to, give up your citizenship, move to another country. You got that choice. The Bible says in Hebrews 13:7, remember your leaders and consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. So I think one of the main problems with leadership is that a lot of times you don't even respect the people that you're claiming to lead or be following. And that is the problem. So before you can even choose or not choose, the nitpicking, all that stuff, my question that I pose to the universe is, have you considered their way of life, and do you want to imitate it? If you don't, you will constantly struggle with criticism and thinking one of my favorite things is that you can do it better. If you can, then go ahead and start your own thing and do the thing. But the truth is you aren't doing it. You didn't come up with the idea necessarily. So like, I don't know, we say these things, but do you even mean it? I'm telling you, as someone who leads, like, boy, the struggle is real. And I respect leaders in a whole new light now because of what I've grown and learned about in leadership. But whatever church you want to go to, consider the people who lead it. Do you think the way they live their life is worth imitating, that you want your life to look like that? That is like the deciding factor. When you go to work somewhere, I know that we all have to work. Thanks freaking Eve and Adam and ruining our whole lives. But we all have to work. You still have a choice, though, in all of that. Like, where will you work? Like, you have a choice. And if you hear from the grapevine that these people lead horribly, like, maybe don't take that job. Also, once you start working somewhere, if you don't like how it's going, you have the freedom to leave. Like, you have the choice. How do you see that they're living their lives? Do you want to be led like that? Do you want to be treated like that? You have the free choice. It's just really interesting that a lot of us just get stuck with truly not really wanting to imitate the people we're following. And then that's when the issues come, because it's not that you don't want to imitate them. You often feel like you are better than them and that you should be the one leading. If those are things that are going on inside of your heart, it is time to either find a new place or check in with God and ask him about the wonderful term of submission. So submission. I know there's so many awkwardnesses around this word. I think awkwardnesses is also a word that I've just made up, but I'm going to go with it. I know there's like some like weird murky stuff like women submit to men and da-da-da-da-da. That whole thing about submission, like if you read, I think it's in Ephesians 4, it talks about like mutually submitting to each other. So without honor and without like mutual submission, it's just going to be really difficult for you. So I'm going to give you an example. So imagine you're in a room with some friends and you're sharing like, oh, I'm going to plan a trip to go to Italy, da-da-da-da. And you are friends with a one-upper. I don't know if anyone knows or has identified someone as a one-upper, but these are the people that can't just listen. They have to one-up your statements. And they're going to say, well, I've been to Italy 1,000,000 times. You shouldn't go there. You should go to like wherever else. And you're like, oh, okay, well, I've been saving like my whole life to take this one trip to Italy. And they're like, well, my mom owns Italy. And it's like, it's just so difficult. So I don't know if you know anyone like that. And if you don't know anyone like that, you could be that person. But the one-uppingness is just such a dishonoring thing. Why can't you, even if you know the answer, maybe just hold back? Allow that other person to share, other person to speak their mind, and you just be like, wow, that's really great. That's really awesome. But that's what mutual submission looks like, when you don't have to be the main one in whatever situation. You can just extend the grace to someone else. I'll give you another example. So as a leader, people definitely have come to me and they've shared their aha, like, oh my gosh, I've learned this thing. Have you ever, you should do this, read this book. You should do this or that. I may have read that book. I may have known that resource. I may have taught years of theological teaching on that one thing. What do you say to the person that's telling you this? Do you crush their little world and say, you peasant, I'm the author of that book? No, you say, wow, I'm so glad, like, God's encouraging you. Like, that's so great to hear. That's the mutual submission. That's the honor, is to build one another up and not necessarily think yourself less than the other, but like to mutually give someone the opportunity to flourish and shine and not try to fight for it yourself. As a leader, I guess the other thing is, like, what do you think a leader's job is? Because if you don't know, it is 100% servanthood. I did not know that. I had no idea that leadership was servanthood. Yeah, loving people. Guys, it's tough in these streets, loving people. Because you know what? Not everyone's lovable. Like, it's really hard. You have to choose to serve them. And I think to a degree, we're all called to be leaders. But you have to realize that it is because of servanthood, servicing, caring. We're going to go with the word caring for other people. I know we all expect that the whole world should stop and care about us. But have you thought that maybe you should stop and care about the whole world? No, I don't even think like that. Like, those are some tough, yeesh. But what if, just what if, how would your life look and how would your relationships look if you thought, how can I bless my friends, bless my leaders, bless the people I lead? Like, how would that look if you were more of a servant than one who wants to be served? And a good leader, if you've ever experienced one, they are really big on giving and putting preference towards you. Yeah. So the four main categories of like leadership relationships, I said at the beginning, is like the world, submitting to your president or king. What else do we got in these streets? Prime minister, Zulu priest, whatever your country runs with, go for it. Your parents, faith-based leaders, and work. And, I wrote down, I wish I could show you the visual. Maybe I'll show it in the little video I'm recording. No, sorry, you can't see that. Maybe I'll post it so you guys see my chicken scratch. But I was like, okay, so with these four categories, what do you do? I wrote down the four categories of leaders, and then I wrote down like what you should do for each category. And I wrote submit, 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 submit. Okay, I see that. The other thing I wrote down was pray, 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 pray. I was like, oh, they're all kind of the same. I also wrote down obey, obey, obey. Oh, that's all the same. However, let me just break these each down. So in the world, with our national leaders, yes, we are supposed to submit to them. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Pay your taxes. Don't go to jail. Try not to speed. I know that's a hard law to obey, but whatever. Pray for your leaders. Like, guys, pray for the president. Unless you put some tickets in that prayer bucket, don't say you've helped. And the other thing you can do is leave your country. You can do that. For your parents, you need to submit, depending on the age you are. So, when you're 5, your mom says, don't run in the street, please submit. Hopefully you 5-year-old are taking on my adult conversation right now. But with parents, the main thing there is to honor them. And honor and obey are different. And respect is different than submission. So like with your parents, yes, that is a relationship that there is some submission depending on the age. But the main thing is to honor them. In church, in Christendom, yes, the main thing is to submit And also to find someone worthy of imitating. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. So if you don't find that they're worthy of imitating, please disassemble that relationship immediately with honor. Don't go telling someone like, I don't like you. You were the worst. That's why I ain't being at this church anymore. Don't do that. That's crazy. But do your inner check and say, do I want to have this outcome of life that this leader has? And when I say like the outcome of their life, this is more clearly. Do you see your pastoral team at your church as being ahead of you in your faith and that you need to catch up in terms of like, wow, they lead with zeal. Yes, they are great theologians. They read their Bibles. Yes, they have signs and wonders following them. If you aren't surpassing them, that's a good place to tuck under so you can grow. So that's what I mean by considering their outcome of their life. And the last place is work. I have personally shifted my entire mindset of submission at work. I've worked in many places where I've struggled because my bosses have not been excellent human beings. And, that's sometimes what happens in work. And I have always argued and fought and called out and snitched and reported and gone to HR. I've been quite a strong employee for change. And the current job I have now, one of my good friends works there and was just like, I'm just going to let you know, like, you can't treat our boss the way you've treated previous ones. And I was like, shut up, friend. You don't know my life. And I have definitely gone into my new employment with this mindset. And it is just outstanding. It's not that I don't care what my boss does, but I'm not responsible to. And it's freed up the relationship. It's freed up when he asked me to do things, just knowing like, just do it. And if it all falls apart, I'm not going to get in trouble because I was told to do this thing. He said to do it. Bro, you're the one that messed up. He will completely either eventually come to me and say you were right, or God will work it out with him in private and you'll gain their respect. So that's my little nuggets on leadership. Just remember that some of this is in your hands. A lot of it's in God's hands. And you need to really consider the outcome of people's lives that you're surrounding yourself with. And you need to make good choices. But you should honor people. You should honor your leaders. You should respect them and respect yourself. And don't be afraid of difficult conversations. There is nothing wrong with telling someone, when you did this or when you didn't do this, it hurt me. That's like one of the most powerful things you can do. The worst thing you can do is tell everybody else that this happened and never tell the person. So I just encourage you to maybe change your perspective on leaders. And I pray that you would grow in your personal leadership and influence in your circle. Well, that's Mindy's House of Gold, episode 5. And oh gosh, there is so much more gold where that came from. Bye.